This video is sponsored by Armour All. I'm delighted to have my M2 competition / club sport back on the channel. For those of you that might have missed it, well, I spent most of last summer upgrading, updating, modifying this road car, trying to turn it into more of a capable track car, but without ruining its road car capabilities. All of that work was done by my friends at Swift Performance in Aylesbury. Stage one was essentially suspension and brakes. So they fitted Bilstein Club Sport suspension, a custom version that Swift Performance have for the F87 M2 comp. We had AP 5000 brakes fitted, RS29 pads, racing fluid, braided lines. Stage two, we focused on much of the interior, removing the rear seats and replacing them with a cage, removing the front seats and replacing them with some Recaro SPGs. We also fitted a steering column extender so it came closer to me when I was sitting in my much lower driving position. We fitted a PS Design shifter, so we really transformed the interior, but the main aim for me was gaining a much better driving position. We also fitted some proper harnesses. After that, we worked on reducing some weight, most notably in the boot. We replaced the standard OEM 24 kilo battery with a very lightweight version from Deadweight Industries. I believe we saved about 17 kilos with that battery alone, which is massively, massively impressive. Then my friends at Auto ID sent me this lovely splitter, which helps feed air into the radiators and the brakes. It also produces a little bit of downforce, and I think it makes the car look far more aggressive, so I really like that. They did send me some side skirts, but I haven't fitted them yet. They will be coming later this summer. And Kyle at Define Coding popped down to give this car what it deserves. We've unlocked a lot of performance from the S55 engine. In the right setting with the right fuel, it will now produce 500 horsepower and about 700 Newton meters of torque. Remember, this is a 6-speed manual M2 competition, so that's about the limit. I don't want or need any more than that. And the final stage, right at the end of last year, just before this went into storage around October time, we replaced the M Performance 19-inch 763M wheels with these 18-inch ProTrax wheels. The reason we downsized was it allowed us to go slightly wider on the tyre section. We now have 265 section on the front and 295 section on the rear. So that should help put all of that 500 horsepower and 700 Newton meters of torque down to the ground, especially on a day like today where it's going to be a bit slippery, at least in the morning. And on top of all of that, Russ from Swift Performance fitted a Team Sherma small axle kinematics kit. So that should give us a lot more drive out the corner and a lot more traction in general on that rear axle. So I'm really excited about finally trying it out on track because I didn't get the chance last year. We finished that final stage and it went straight into storage. Before we head out on track, I want to say a big thanks to the sponsors of this video, and they are Armour All Ceramic. As you know, my M2 competition / club sport gets used properly. You can almost say it gets used and abused. Most of the time in this car is spent out on track, and the rest of the time is spent on the road in the UK. So it really does get used, and things like the paintwork, the wheels, the glass, well, they do tend to get battered. And in fact, when I went and picked it up yesterday from my storage unit, I realized that I didn't clean it when I dropped it off there almost 6 months beforehand. So it had 6 months of stale dirt on it and really was crying out for a clean. I popped down to my local Halfords to pick up a selection of the new Armour All ceramic range. I washed the car using their Armour All ceramic car wash. I washed the wheels using their Armour All ceramic wheel cleaner. And after I'd done all of that, I used some of their glass treatment and cleaner for the glass. And you can check out the Armour All Ceramics full range using the link in the description below and in my pinned comment. And typically, the second I finished cleaning the car, the heavens opened and it rained all night long and all morning long. I got down here to Bedford this morning at 7:30, and on my drive down here it was mostly torrential rain. Conditions were really bad, and the poor car that was really clean last night got covered in dirty rain and grit and whatever else throws up at you from the road. But miraculously, the car is still pretty much spotless, which is a really good test for the ceramic, because essentially what that should do is expel any water, dirt, grime, gravel, flies, you name it, it should keep it off the bodywork. And I think today's going to be even more of a test when I take it out on track, because obviously you get excessive amounts of flies and rubber and stones and all sorts getting thrown up onto the car. I would say a day on track is equivalent to 2 weeks of road driving sometimes, especially when the conditions are slippery like this, because stuff gets thrown up. So I'm really excited to see what the car's like at the end of the day, and I'm really, really grateful that this video is sponsored by Armour All Ceramic. The next bit of the video is meant to be me in the car talking about what it's like out on track. Unfortunately, the car is now broken. To what extent, I'm not sure. We'll talk about what happened when we jump inside. But I just wanted to say, firstly, this was not planned. It's going to cost a lot of money to get fixed, whatever it is. And I obviously don't like my drama videos. I never dramatize things on YouTube just for the sake of it, like a lot of people do. Because when something does happen, like it has today, you're less likely to react or believe it. But unfortunately, the M2 is now well and truly broken. And I think I am mostly to blame. But we'll jump inside and talk about that in a sec. A big shout out to MSV Track Days and all the marshals and support crew that work here at Bedford. Track days are always risky. You can have mechanical issues, you can have accidents, you can have really bad accidents. So I'm just grateful that it wasn't a really bad accident. I'm fine. It's going to get recovered tomorrow back to Swift Performance, and then Russ can have a good look at it and diagnose what exactly has gone wrong. Let's jump inside and talk about what led up to the car essentially breaking. So what exactly went wrong? Well, I went out for some sighting laps, just sussing out the conditions, because as you had seen from the intro, it had been raining, and it literally had stopped raining when they opened the track. So after I'd finished the intro, there'd been a few cars around and there was a bit of a drying line. So the track was fun, but it was tricky and slippy in places, but nothing out of the ordinary. I was just building up a little bit of pace, getting a little bit of temperature through the Cup 2s. On about lap 2 or maybe 3, I thought about coming back into the pits, just to check tyre temps, etc. But as I was thinking about doing that, I decided just to stay out for one more lap, for one dreaded more lap. The car was feeling so good. I mean, I wasn't getting near the limits of grip in the dry. It feels transformed compared to the last time I had it on track before we put the wheels and the Team Sherma stuff on. So I was building up pace. I came onto the back straight, and for those of you that know the West Circuit here at Bedford, back straight's really long and there's a chicane. In this car with 500 horsepower, you're doing just over 150 miles an hour. Obviously, come out the chicane, I think in third, or the bottom hairpin, not chicane, in third, into fourth. I'd overtaken a Lotus Exige that had indicated to the right. To be fair, wasn't going much slower than I was, but he'd indicated to the right. And so I was just overtaking him, and so I've gone fourth, And then you probably guessed it, I went for fifth. I was convinced I hit fifth, but what had happened, and I'm not blaming the car or the shifter, I'm blaming myself very much. I went from fourth into third. Unfortunately, because these were essentially test laps, I didn't have my cameras running. This clip is from September last year, and I just wanted to show you what the back straight was all about if you're not familiar with Bedford. The car was running about 460 horsepower here, not the 500 it's running now, or it was running. So that's top of fourth now, 130 miles an hour and into fifth, and that's where it all went wrong. So I'm top of fourth at about 7,500 RPM. From that to go into third, I mean, the needle, all my sensations just were alive at that point, because I've gone, as I've come off the clutch, firstly, the first thing I feel is the car massively decelerating. Then I've glanced down, seen the rev needle absolutely swinging, like I'm surprised it hadn't snapped off. So I've got the deceleration, I've got the needle, and I've got this sound, and I've stabbed on the clutch as soon as I possibly could, and when I realised what had happened, but at that point it was too late. I heard this horrible metallic sound, and then this sort of like cha-ching, 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 cha-ching sound. So I don't know. I put it into neutral. I could coast along the second straight after I'd got through the chicane, after I'd limped through there. I shut the engine down just after I'd got through the chicane and came to a rolling stop in where they usually run the Caterhams, for those of you that know the Bedford circuit, and then waited for a recovery to come bring me back to here. So I don't know what the problem is. We're going to go and find that out. It's going to get recovered to Swift tomorrow, and I'm going to find out what the issue is. I fear that it is the crank hub. I think, yeah, that's usually a common issue on the S55. It's something that I was looking at getting fixed or remedied this year. It's a big expense just to get that fixed, because if it does go, if it has slipped, then essentially it's an entire new engine. So worst case scenario, it's a reconditioned engine, S55, which, as you can imagine, even before labour, is probably tens of thousands of pounds. Anyway, I can speculate. All I can do at the moment really is Lou's just arrived to pick me up and take me home. So I'm just very grateful to have the support, and grateful that I'm not too far away from home, about an hour and 15-20 minutes maybe. And I'm grateful that this video is sponsored, because without the help of sponsors like Armour All, I would be in big trouble now, and I really dread to think what this is going to cost me. But fingers crossed, it's not as bad as I think it is. I'm setting my levels down here, so hopefully Russ will tell me and it'll come up. But anyway, let's see. It's 1,000,000 degrees in here now. Of course, the sun and the conditions are perfect. They've been so nice all afternoon as I've been sitting here stranded. But hey, you win some and you lose some, and that is life, unfortunately. It's full of ebbs and flows. I'm just grateful that I'm fine and didn't have a bad injury or accident. I'll see you at Swift Performance in a couple of days' time. You join me 48 hours later and I'm down here at Swift Performance. This is actually their new premises, which is on the same industrial estate, so they're still in Aylesbury, but they've upgraded to a much bigger double unit compared to their older singular unit. I was hoping that I was going to come down here on a more upbeat occasion, as opposed to coming down here to seeing how bad my M2 is and how much damage I've potentially done. Russ has very kindly had a quick look over the car, plugged the diagnostics machine in to read a number of error codes, but because we're fairly certain it's something mechanical, the codes are not going to tell all the story. and Russ is actually heading off to the ring in a couple of hours time, and then a little road trip, so he's not here for the next week or so. So we don't really know much further about what the problem is, but there's some crank hub sensors that have failed and a few other bits and pieces which are kind of pointing the finger at crank hub failure or something along those lines, which is not good news. I've spent the past 2 nights not sleeping particularly well, especially the first night after it happened on Monday night. I kept waking up, must have been 20 times, hoping that it was a bad dream and then remembering that it wasn't. So yeah, I am no less gutted about what happened, but at the same time, what is done, and we can only fix the problem and then hopefully get a crank hub fix on the engine so it'll be stronger and better than ever moving forward. Not sure when the next update video will be on the car because, as I say, Russ is away for at least a week now, and they've got so much work going on in there. They've got loads of lovely cars lined up, ready to get fixed and worked on. So I'm not going to add to that pressure. I'm not in a massive hurry to get the M2 back now. I kind of want to distance myself from it a little bit, because yeah, seeing it in there, it does actually break my heart a little bit because I love that car so much, and I was so excited about the track day. Massive thanks once again to the sponsor of this video, Armour All Ceramic. There is no doubting that the car at least looks fantastic and somehow looks very, very clean. I spent a couple of hours on the back of a flatbed truck yesterday in bad weather and it still looks like it's just been washed, and that's the whole reasoning and point behind that ceramic range. Is not only can you clean the car and coat the car, but when it does get hit with rain and horrible conditions, the car continues to look nice and clean, and then when you do go and clean it, it's a lot easier to remove that dirt because it doesn't stick to the paintwork or the glass of the wheels like it would do otherwise. So huge thanks to those guys. There's a link in the description and in the pinned comment. Make sure you do go and check those guys out and support them, because wow, if I ever needed support, it was for this particular video. Stay tuned for the next video coming very soon, and stay tuned for an M2 update video coming in the next, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks realistically. Fingers crossed it's not too horrific, but it's going to be pretty serious. Cheers guys.